Talking about the alleged temple beneath the Al-Aqsa Mosque is no longer confined to religious texts or legendary narratives. It has transformed into a full-fledged political project adopted by the Israeli establishment and executed through carefully calculated steps over decades. Between the accounts that claim the existence of the Holy of Holies beneath the Dome of the Rock, the maps drawn by Orientalists and British officers, and the tunnels dug day and night beneath the Old City, the struggle over Jerusalem emerges as a battle over identity, memory, and sovereignty all at once. From the Warren maps in the 19th century to the demolition of the Magharba Quarter in 1967, and up to the Pilgrim's Road project in Silwan, it becomes clear that the excavations were not merely innocent archaeological activity, but rather a tool to reshape the space in a way that serves the Zionist narrative. Yet, despite material and military superiority and Western support, Al-Aqsa has remained resilient, and Jerusalem continues to be a center of deeply rooted resistance, carried by Palestinian memory and nourished by Islamic and Christian sensitivities that transcend borders. In this video, we will delve into the depth of this issue, exploring the tension between contested religious texts, politicized archaeological policies, religious divisions, and the enormous cost that makes the demolition of Al-Aqsa a deferred dream despite all the plans. Stay with us until the end, and don't forget to support us by liking the video and subscribing to the channel to receive all our latest content. Since the early 19th century, the contours of what later became known as the legend of the buried secret beneath the Al-Aqsa Mosque began to take shape. At that time, the attention of Orientalists and European travelers turned toward Jerusalem, seeing it not only as a stage for religious texts, but also as a key to understanding the Holy Land. These explorers did not limit themselves to documenting the visible scenes above the ground. They became preoccupied with what they believed to be a hidden world beneath the noble sanctuary. As a result, preliminary maps and architectural sketches appeared, attempting to depict a network of tunnels and corridors said to conceal the alleged temple, or the remnants of the Holy of Holies. These Orientalist maps were not mere neutral scholarly attempts. Rather, they were tied to imaginative and legendary visions that fueled the Western imagination with the idea that buried Jerusalem held secrets beyond what was visible. With each new European archaeological expedition, the production of reports claiming that the depths of Al-Aqsa concealed historical evidence awaiting discovery increased, which helped spread the narrative of the buried secret as a story charged with both religious and political symbolism. As these notions seeped into the modern colonial mindset, Jerusalem transformed from a city inhabited with history and people into an open text for interpretation, upon which hypotheses and political projects were constructed that went beyond academic research to serve broader agendas. Thus, the issue of the alleged temple was no longer confined to ancient religious texts, but found a foothold in the policies of colonial powers, which reproduced Jerusalem as a space of competition between myth and reality, and between archaeological inquiry and political domination. One of the most controversial issues in the religious and political history of Jerusalem is what is known as the alleged temple. According to the Zionist narrative, it is claimed that beneath the Al-Aqsa Mosque lie the remains of Solomon's temple, and that the Dome of the Rock was built directly above the foundation stone, which is said to have been the center of the Holy of Holies. This hypothesis did not remain merely a religious interpretation or historical inquiry. It evolved into a public political project that justifies demands to remove Al-Aqsa and rebuild the temple as a religious and historical rite. However, the fundamental problem lies in the contradictions within the Jewish texts themselves. These sources never agreed on a precise location for the temple or the Holy of Holies. Rather, they contain divergent accounts that make it impossible to settle the matter scientifically or religiously. Even rabbis and Jewish scholars have disagreed on the location. Is it truly beneath Al-Aqsa? or in other places, such as Mount Gerizim, or outside the noble sanctuary entirely. This conflict confirms that what is presented today as historical truth is, in reality, a legendary construct charged with ideology. From the Islamic perspective, the Quran never mentions a temple or sacred structure called the Holy of Holies. Instead, it speaks of Solomon's palace, built by divine miracle from clear glass, quarir, as in the verse, "Indeed, it is a palace made of glass." Al-Naml 44. This clear Quranic text establishes that what was associated with Solomon, peace be upon him, was a royal and miraculous palace, not a temple in the sense promoted by Zionist thought. Thus, the Islamic religious evidence does not in any way support the claim of a buried structure beneath Al-Aqsa. On the archaeological level, what has actually been uncovered is limited to Herodian remnants surrounding the edges of the platform, such as arches, supports, and ancient roads. To date, no direct material evidence has been published indicating the existence of the Ark of the Covenant, temple vessels, or any trace of a temple beneath Al-Aqsa. Archaeology in Jerusalem has never been merely a neutral research practice. Since the 19th century, it has transformed into a political and colonial tool used to reshape the space and construct narratives around it. Excavations became intertwined with projects of military and religious influence, so that every archaeological discovery or new map became a means of redefining who owns the land and who has the right to narrate its story. In 1867, the British sent Officer Charles Warren to Jerusalem as part of a mission on behalf of the Palestine Exploration Fund. He documented water cisterns, sewage systems, and passages beneath the hill, producing what later became known as the Warren Maps. These maps were not purely scientific work. They were connected to the Anglo-Protestant vision of the Holy Land, which viewed Jerusalem more as a biblical stage than a living city. The project also had clear intelligence and colonial objectives, as its results were used to lay the political groundwork preceding the British mandate. Thus, Warren's excavations represented the first step in using archaeology as a means to consolidate control over the land and transform history into a tool of influence. After the occupation of East Jerusalem and the Old City in 1967, Israel swiftly demolished the Magharba quarter within a few hours, opening a wide plaza in front of the Western Wall. This was not an innocent urban planning decision. It was a deliberate reconfiguration of the urban space to serve a specific religious political narrative. Since then, excavations have continued at an accelerated pace. Among the most notable are the Western Wall tunnels, which run along the wall and beneath buildings in the Islamic quarter. Although they do not reach the halls of Al-Aqsa, they are marketed as discoveries of the alleged temple. Excavations also began in the Ophel area south of the Haram, revealing paved Herodian streets, Umayyad and Crusader remains, and support structures for the walls. In Silwan, known as the City of David, the focus has been on the Pilgrim's Road and Hezekiah's Tunnel, presented to tourists as biblical discoveries, while in reality, they are political projects aimed at consolidating control over the space surrounding Al-Aqsa. In this way, every meter underground has become a tool for asserting control above it, turning archaeology into a direct arm of occupation. In the late 1990s, the Marwani Arches, known in Western literature as Solomon's Stables, underwent a radical transformation after being converted into a prayer hall. Massive amounts of soil were removed without any stratigraphic documentation, raising widespread controversy over the loss of important historical evidence. Later, the Temple Mount Soil Screening Project sifted through the removed rubble, reportedly discovering thousands of artifacts spanning multiple eras, from Byzantine pottery to Islamic coins. However, these items came from contextless debris, making them unsuitable as conclusive evidence for any archaeological narrative. As a result, the findings became interpretable material, with each side using them to support its political or religious narrative. The issue of the alleged temple is one of the most controversial topics in the religious and political history of Jerusalem. It is not merely a legendary account in sacred texts or an ancient religious symbol. Rather, it has become the center of an ideological and political struggle with a direct impact on the reality and future of the city. Despite the monolithic image promoted in Zionist discourse, which portrays the temple as having stood on the site of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the internal Jewish community itself reveals profound divisions regarding this issue, both in terms of the temple's true location and regarding who has the right or capacity to rebuild it. The Jewish debate over the temple's location reflects a diversity of religious and historical interpretations. There is no consensus among Jewish sects on its exact site. For example, Samaritan traditions place the temple on Mount Gerizim in Nablus, not in Jerusalem. This position reflects a different reading of history, contradicting the religious Zionist narrative, which monopolizes the story and links it exclusively to Jerusalem. Some Orthodox rabbinical streams are highly cautious about any attempt to enter the area believed to be the Holy of Holies, fearing ritual defilement according to religious law. This explains why large groups of devout Jews abstain from participating in incursions into the Al-Aqsa Mosque. In contrast, other streams believe that awaiting the Messiah does not preclude taking practical, political, and even military steps to prepare the ground for the temple's reconstruction. Amid these internal divisions, 19th-century evangelical Protestantism played a role in reviving what later became known as the Dream of Israel's Return. This Christian movement viewed the return of the Jews to Palestine and the rebuilding of the temple as essential conditions for the second coming of Christ. In this way, a theological doctrine was transformed into an active political program that served the Zionist project and validated its narrative. Thus, an unofficial alliance emerged between Protestant religious thought, with its messianic salvation vision, and the Jewish political goal of consolidating presence in Palestine, portraying Jerusalem as a city destined to host the temple before the end of time. By the early 20th century, religious Zionism rose as the most explicit and outspoken current calling for the demolition of Al-Aqsa and the construction of the Third Temple in its place. This movement rejected passive waiting for the Messiah, arguing that humans themselves must intervene to create the conditions for rebuilding, viewing prolonged waiting as an obstacle to God's will as they perceive it. From this perspective, continuous practices emerged in various forms, including intensive excavations beneath the noble sanctuary, settlement attempts around it, and support for Temple Mount groups that actively seek to alter the status quo and assert a symbolic and physical presence at the holiest point in the city. Despite the intensity of ideological rhetoric, political reality has imposed a pragmatic approach. Israel is aware that directly demolishing Al-Aqsa could ignite a major regional and international confrontation. Therefore, religious Zionism and the Israeli state have adopted a policy of small steps since 1967. Through repeated incursions, gradual excavations, and the creation of new settlement facts near the Haram, pursuing a slow but steady preparation for the moment they deem appropriate to rebuild the Third Temple, where religious fantasy meets political ambition. Despite Israel's political, media, and economic influence, the demolition of the Al-Aqsa Mosque has not been realized due to massive structural obstacles that make the political, security, and humanitarian costs unbearable. The first of these obstacles is deep-rooted Palestinian resistance on the ground. In addition, the transnational significance of Al-Aqsa means that Islamic and global reactions would be catastrophic diplomatically and economically. The Hashemite custodianship and the Islamic Waqf provide a legal and religious cover recognized by the international community, while UNESCO decisions affirm Jerusalem's Islamic identity and condemn any unilateral changes. Moreover, the admissions of prominent Israeli historians, such as Benjamin Kedar, who confirm the absence of any material evidence for the First Temple, undermine the official narrative and reveal that the entire issue rests more on texts and ideological interpretations than on archaeological reality. Rumors have played a central role in creating the legend of the buried secret beneath Al-Aqsa. What began as fleeting stories evolved into political and media tools that fuel tension and justify ambitions. With every archaeological expedition or new excavation project, sensational news circulated, exaggerating discoveries or adding legendary elements, making it increasingly difficult to distinguish fantasy from reality. Among the most persistent rumors is the story of the Ark of the Covenant, said to be buried beneath the dome of the rock containing Moses' tablets. This hypothesis appeared in the writings of Orientalists and 19th-century European newspapers without any archaeological evidence to support it. Other rumors claimed that the sacred rock itself is the Holy of Holies, hiding a sealed chamber that has never been opened for thousands of years. This claim has been widely used in religious and political literature to justify the idea that Al-Aqsa was built directly over the temple. Accompanying this was the legend of hidden gold, with popular stories in Jerusalem claiming the existence of treasures belonging to King Solomon beneath the mosque, allegedly the target of Israeli excavations. Despite the lack of scientific evidence, these stories gained traction due to Solomon's legendary status in collective imagination. Another widely circulated rumor speaks of a tunnel connecting Al-Aqsa to the Western Wall, leading to secret chambers supposedly usable to control the Haram from within. Although Israeli excavations have not reached inside Al-Aqsa itself, the rumor persists and continues to be exploited to incite ongoing tension. The circle of rumors also includes claims of biblical archaeological discoveries allegedly found by Israeli authorities but kept secret to avoid early political confrontation, reinforcing the belief in hidden truths that are deliberately withheld. In conclusion, it becomes clear that the so-called buried secret beneath Al-Aqsa is nothing more than a legend exploited to justify a colonial project targeting the identity of Jerusalem. The absence of archaeological evidence for the existence of Solomon's Temple or the Ark of the Covenant is countered by a frantic effort through excavations and tunnels to impose an alternative narrative. Nevertheless, the Al-Aqsa Mosque remains resilient, protected by resistance, public awareness, and Islamic and international support, while the alleged temple remains a political illusion facing the enduring reality of Al-Aqsa as a symbol of history and resistance. And with that, we reach the end of today's video. Don't miss the chance to stay updated with all our latest content by subscribing to the channel and activating the notification bell to receive everything new.